There is what seems to be a contradiction in the Bible about what we call the Last Supper. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all say that this meal was on the first day of Passover. John says Passover was the next day. I have a really simple explanation for this, and I think once you hear it, you'll see that today, no matter what time of year it is a great day to celebrate the Passover. Before we get to the simple answer, we're going to need to take a look at a few technical details, starting with how Father sees a day. His way is different than the midnight to midnight concept that we inherited from the Egyptians and Romans. A day in Father's calendar has 4 parts. There is night, which in Hebrew is Laila, morning, which is Boker, day, which in Hebrew is Yom. We would call this part of the day daytime in English, and there is evening, which is Erev. These 4 parts make up a full day: night, morning, daytime, and evening. Notice that the daytime part is called Yom, and the full day with all 4 parts is also called Yom. When you celebrate a Sabbath, it's written that you are to do it from evening to evening, meaning don't wait until the nighttime to start your Sabbath. Start at the end of the previous day to make sure you capture the full day of the Sabbath. The example he gives us for this is the Day of Atonement, which is the 10th day of the 7th month. I put the number of the day in the daytime section, but the full day includes everything in the red box: night, morning, daytime, and evening. So for the Day of Atonement, which he says is the 10th, he says, "You shall afflict your souls in the 9th of the month at evening. From evening until evening you shall celebrate your Sabbath." He's literally telling you that to observe the 10th, start on the 9th. So sometime in the evening before sunset, get yourself in place for the Sabbath, which is coming at nightfall. The word for evening in the original Hebrew letters is helpful in understanding the timing here. This is the word Erev, Ayin, Resh, Beit. Ayin is a word in Hebrew that means eye, and the original Hebrew letter was a picture of an eye. Resh is a man's head, and Beit is a house. This letter Beit is used in Hebrew words to mean house and in or inside. In ancient times, before electricity kept us out of the house all hours of the night, evening was the time you would see men going home. Evening is the end of a day. In the first month of the year, which Father calls Aviv, he told Israel to keep a few appointed times to remember the Exodus. The 14th of Aviv was to be known as the Passover of YHVH. On this day, in the daytime, the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. This was also the day to remove leaven from your house, because for the next 7 days, no leaven is allowed inside. The next 7 days were the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The full 7 days of the feast are from the 15th through the 21st, but to capture those full 7 days, you start the feast on the evening before, on the 14th. Because of this, you'll see the feast described in the scriptures both ways, as beginning on the 15th and as beginning on the evening of the 14th. This is also one of the reasons why, even though Passover is a single day and the feast is 7 days, this entire 8-day period is sometimes referred to as unleavened bread, or as the feast, or as Passover. No work was to be done on the 15th of Aviv by command of the Lord, so this day was a Sabbath. John calls it a high Sabbath. In the nighttime is when Israel ate the Passover lamb, and it was on this day when Father led Israel out of Egypt. There was also Firstfruits, which is when Israel was to give Father an offering of the firstfruits of their harvest. No date is specified for Firstfruits, but it does say that it should be on the first day of the week after Passover. And it's written that YASHUA rose from the grave on the first day of the week after Passover. So once we have a date for his resurrection, which will be in a few minutes, we'll be able to place the Firstfruits. The Gospel accounts of the Last Supper begin on the 13th of Aviv. They called this day the first day of the feast, since they were living under the Roman Empire, where a day is midnight to midnight, and the feast was beginning later that same Roman day. On the 13th of Aviv is when the apostles asked YASHUA, "Where should we go to prepare the Passover?" A few of them went off in the daytime to make preparations, and in the evening, YASHUA and the other apostles went to the upper room to meet them. Later, as they were sitting and eating together, YASHUA says, "I have earnestly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer." And here is our problem. YASHUA calls this meal the Passover, but Israel would not be sitting down for the Passover meal for another 24 hours, as you can see. It sounds like the apostles were eating Passover a day early, but the reason YASHUA calls this meal the Passover is simple when you consider the menu. The apostle wrote that YASHUA is our Passover who was sacrificed. So if YASHUA is the Passover, when do we eat Passover? Well, when the Passover lamb himself tells you to take and eat, "This is my flesh," it's safe to say that that is the Passover meal, regardless of what day of the year it is. After he says, "I have earnestly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer," we read that he took bread, broke it, and gave it to the apostles. And he said, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And likewise the cup after they had eaten, saying, "This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood." This meal that we now call communion is the Passover of the new covenant, the covenant where YASHUA is the Passover lamb. This is the Passover that he earnestly desired to share with the disciples. The Lamb of the Exodus was slain to save Israel for one night, but he knew that his death was about to save his friends forever. There's a foreshadow of YASHUA's Passover meal in the Hebrew word shem, which means name. The only ones who Father will let live are those whose shems are in the book of life. And having a shem, a name, is used all throughout the scriptures to symbolize life itself. If he blots out your shem, for example, you're dead. The word shem is spelled shin, mem. Shin is a word in Hebrew that means teeth, and in the original Hebrew alphabet, the letter shin was a picture of teeth. Mem was a picture of water. So this word shem by the letters means to eat and drink. If you eat and drink, you are alive. Therefore, you have a name on this earth. Those whose names, whose shems, are in the Lamb's book of life, eat and drink of YASHUA, our Passover lamb. The apostles were the first ones to eat this Passover of the new covenant, and they ate it on the 14th of Aviv. It's no coincidence that Father had told Moses in the wilderness that the 14th of Aviv was a day that was to be called the Passover of YHVH. Later that same day on Father's calendar, in the daytime, is when our Passover lamb YASHUA was crucified and buried, and this became day 1 of his 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. There's night 1, day 2, night 2, day 3, and night 3. So it was on this day in Father's calendar, on the 17th, when YASHUA rose from the grave. It's written that while it was still dark, the women went to the tomb, and when they arrived at sunrise, he was not there, because he had already risen. It's written that he rose the first day of the week, after the Sabbath, which makes this day Firstfruits. It's written that he spent 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. It's written that he rose after 3 days. Now this would be 3 daytime yoms. It's also written that he rose the 3rd day. This is the first full yom where he was in the grave. This is the 2nd. And this is the 3rd. He rose the 3rd yom, that is, the 3rd day. And lastly, it's written that he rose in 3 days, which is also referring to these same 3 full yoms. And here is the full picture. Hopefully this video clears up any questions you may have about Yeshua's last few days here on earth before his return. And at the very least, if your shem is in the book of life, hopefully it was a good reminder to eat and drink in remembrance of him.